Good day, everyone. We are Group 2 and we are going to discuss various business crimes in the Civil Code of the Philippines. The following are the contents of our presentation. Without further ado, let's begin with the law on sales.
For our sample question, is there an estafa in cases of double sale? Before the enactment of the new Civil Code and the revised Penal Code, there is a prevailing doctrine in relation to double sale and estafa. It is the Drilon Doctrine. In the case of United States versus Drilon, a second sale of the same property was held to constitute estafa under the same article of the Penal Code then in force, which decision was based on the similar decisions of the Supreme Court of Spain based on identical language in the Spanish Penal Code. However, today the following are the prevailing laws and jurisprudence on the matter of double sale. Article 1544 of the new Civil Code provides that if the same thing should have been sold to different vendees, the ownership shall be transferred to the person who may have first taken possession thereof in good faith, if it should be movable property. Should it be immovable property, the ownership shall belong to the person acquiring it who in good faith first recorded it in the registry of property. Should there be no inscription, the ownership shall pertain to the person who in good faith was first in the possession, and in the absence thereof to the person who presents the oldest title, provided there is good faith. The aforementioned provision did not mention the inclusion of staffa in case of double sale. Instead, it offered remedies in cases of such. Moreover, the revised Penal Code, specifically Article 315, states that there are different forms of committing estafa. It can be committed with unfaithfulness or abuse of confidence by means of false pretenses or fraudulent acts, and through fraudulent means. The first form, which is with unfaithfulness or abuse of confidence, is known as estafa with abuse of confidence. While the second form and third form, which are by means of false pretenses or fraudulent acts and through fraudulent means, are known simply as estafa by means of deceit. There is no mention of double sales as a form of staffa in this provision.
There is a double sale when the same object of the sale is sold to different vendees. In the case of Cheng versus Henato, the Supreme Court enumerated the requisites of when a case is considered a double sale. Thus, there is a double sale when the following are present. The two or more sales transactions in the issue must pertain to exactly the same subject matter and must be valid sales transactions. The two or more buyers at odds over the rightful ownership of the subject matter must each represent conflicting interests, and the two or more buyers at odds over the rightful ownership of the subject matter must each have bought from the very same seller, and in such case, who among the two vendees will be entitled to the disputed properties. Accordingly, in case of double sale, if the thing sold is a personal property, the ownership shall be transferred to the person who had first taken possession of the property in good faith. However, if the property sold was a real property, the ownership shall belong to the buyer who first registered in good faith the real property. In case both buyers have not registered the property, the first to possess it in good faith owns the property, and in case the property was not registered and not under the possession of any of the two buyers, the buyer with the oldest title in good faith has ownership thereof.
According to the Civil Code of the Philippines, agency is when a person binds himself to render service or act as a representative of another person. The principal in this case should give their consent or authority to the agent to act on their behalf within the determined limitations. There are various provisions stated in the Civil Code that would hold the agent liable. Some provisions would serve as a precaution in favor of the principal. The agent is also supposed to act with due diligence in all circumstances. In cases when the agent does not act for the principal but his own benefit, or their act or omission would negatively affect the latter, they would be held accountable for their action. Next would be the example of a case that would show business crime concerning agency.
The case of Osorio versus People of the Philippines would be an example of business crime in agency. For the facts of the case, petitioner was charged with estafa by means of deceit under Article 315, Paragraph 2A of the RPC. Osorio introduced herself as an agent of Philam Life and offered to Gabriel insurance coverage. Enticed by the offer, Gabriel tendered 200,000 to Osorio, who in turn issued Philam Life receipts. Gabriel then discovered that her insurance policies had lapsed due to non-payment with Philam Life, but she then received from PMIAM, another insurance company, a letter thanking her for investing with them. Displeased, Gabriel asked for a refund of her partial investment. She defended that she diverted the money to PMIAM with the consent of Gabriel since it offered a higher rate of return. For the ruling, the court finds the accused guilty beyond reasonable doubt of estafa, punishable under Article 315, Paragraph 2A of the RPC. The accused is also directed to reimburse the sum of 200,000 pesos, with legal rate of interest fixed at 6% per annum.
We will now proceed with business crimes in relation with credit transactions laws. Article 1955 of the Civil Code provides that the obligation of a person who borrows money shall be governed by the provisions of Articles 1249 and 1250 of the same code. Well, Article 1249 and 1250 simply states that the payment of the borrowed money or the debt shall be made in the same way that it was delivered, such as in the same currency or in the form of promissory notes, bills of exchange, or other mercantile documents. If there is inflation or deflation, the same value of the currency at the time of the obligation shall be the basis. Now, what is credit transactions? This includes all transactions involving the purchase or loan of goods, services, money in the present with a promise to pay or deliver in the future. Credit card or access devices fraud, on the other hand, is the intentional procurement of goods, services, or monies with a stolen, lost, canceled, or counterfeit credit card. Credit card fraud is one of the most frequently committed types of white-collar crime. The governing laws for this matter are Republic Act number 10870, or the Philippine Credit Card Industry Regulation Law, and Republic Act number 8484, which is also known as the Access Devices Regulation Act of 1998.
For our example case, we have Cristobal versus People of the Philippines. In this case, the petitioner posed as a credit card agent to Henry Yu. He promised to offer his services to Mr. Yu in obtaining a loan assistance with a low interest rate. He asked for several documents, identification cards, and statements of accounts in exchange. It was revealed that his true intention was to apply for a Metrobank credit card under Mr. Yu's name. This was a violation of Section 9E of RA number 8484, possessing one or more counterfeit access devices fraudulently applied for. The petitioner argued that he was never in possession of the credit card because of his immediate arrest after he signed the acknowledgement receipt. He was not able to open the envelope delivered containing the credit card and other documents. The Supreme Court ruled that the petitioner is still guilty and emphasized the definition of possession as used in Article 523 of the Civil Code. There are two elements involved in the acquisition of possession. One is corpus or material holding of the thing, and two, animus possidendi, or the intent to possess it. It was obvious that the petitioner has the intent to possess when he signed the acknowledgement receipt. He was also able to materially hold the envelope before his arrest. These signify the intent to possess the credit card and use it for fraudulent purposes.
So for provisions in relation to torts, this can generally be found in Title 17, Chapter 2 of the New Civil Code. So first, Article 2176, this basically designates negligence as a separate source of obligation. So what's important here is that there must be clear evidence that the cause of damage is the fault or negligence of the defendant. Article 2180, on the other hand, imposes liability to a person who did not cause the injury but who has a particular legal relationship to the person who did the act negligently. So in relation to business crimes, the fourth paragraph, this deals with the vicarious liability of the owners and managers of an enterprise to the negligence committed by their employees. Another provision that relates to business crimes is embodied in Article 2187, which imposes a strict liability on the manufacturers and processors. This is mainly because the life of the consuming public is involved in the consumption of products mentioned in the provision.
The case of Philippine Bank Commerce versus the Court of Appeals is one example of a business crime in relation with the law on torts. RMC suffered losses when one of its employees, Yaput, defrauded a substantial amount from their bank accounts with PBC. She committed it by duplicating the deposit slip and had it validated by PBC's teller, Mabayad, even though the information was incomplete. Because RMC's manager, Lipana, failed to monitor their financial report, Yaput was able to pull this modus for more than a year, thereby causing more than 300,000 pesos loss for RMC funds. Because of these, RMC, PBC, and its teller, Mabayad, were found negligent. The lack of due diligence allowed Yaput to take advantage of the circumstances in her favor. This case showed us how the negligence of others could pave a way for the commission of a business crime, and that's why it is important that we exercise the due diligence expected of us and become more vigilant.
Thank you for listening to our presentation.